It went live quicker than I thought. Caught me in the middle of my sip of coffee. Hello, Bob, to the AI. Greetings and blessings to all of you this Friday, almost Saturday morning, May the 3rd, going into the 4th. And speaking about going into the 4th, this is going to be a conversation about what we might expect in the fourth dimension. What types of things, people talk about the fourth dimension all the time, and we're going to get to that anyway. I want to finish my introduction and say greetings and blessings to every single one of you. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. Thank you if and when you do share. I don't ever ask you to share or like a video, but I appreciate what you do. And I continuously pray for all of you and all of your friends and family. I know I don't get on here as often as I'd like to sometimes, but sometimes there needs to be some time taken off to be able to listen and receive downloads and so forth. So anyway, but I want you to know that you are always in my prayers. Good evening, good morning, Pamela. Fascinating topic. Oh, wait till I get into this one, Pamela. Boy, I've had some downloads here these last couple of days, and it's very interesting. So let me have a sip of coffee. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna light a cigarette. I just came in from the chicken pen trying to chase off possums again, and my spirit guides really want me to do this video. So, hi, Bob. Here's coffee. Hi to you, Pamela, and to anybody else who shows up. Much love to all of you and continued blessings. I hope you're receiving at least some blessings from the universe. Sometimes they're little tiny, teeny, little itty bitty blessings, but when we look at the universe, sometimes those blessings are all around us, especially when we pay closer attention, which is part of the subject of this at the end of the title about the macro and the micro. Let me touch base on that a little bit, because I'm going to start at the back end of the title of the of this video and start there, because it's important to understand that what we see in the macro meaning large in the big scheme of things, the whole planet, the macro environment. And, there are times when, as a shaman, as a Native American, as just a crazy little kid sitting out in the woods, I've always been interested, looking at ants and bugs and things in the grass and, stuff. And that is that's the microorganisms. Now, if you take them back in biology, back in 66 or 7, when I took biology, wow, that's a long time ago. You take a little bit of pond water and put it underneath the microscope, and you look at it and you see all this stuff swimming around in there, and you go, you can't see these things, but they exist. And so the reason I'm bringing up this topic, macro, micro first, is the lead into this dimensional shift into what timelines are being changed and things along that nature, because first, you must understand how we are all connected. Even if you don't want to believe in the rest of the universe, you must understand that the microorganisms on this planet interact with the macroorganisms of this planet, such as trees and, big stuff. If it weren't for the microorganisms, the things in the soil, the trees wouldn't be able to grow. They wouldn't be able to absorb the nutrients that they need to live and to grow and be sustainable. So if you say, well, one doesn't matter to the other, I disagree. And in evolution and in ecology, you must understand that all of these things work together. If you down here in the South, they're having a big problem with 800 tons of chicken manure per year they have to get rid of. It's wreaking havoc on neighborhoods. It's nasty. And I've been complaining about this ever since they started this mess. But, they got to catch up with this. So 15 years later, they're now going, oh, my God, we have a problem. Anyway, but they don't look at the micro of things. They only look at the macro. So they're looking at the big picture, but they're not looking at the little picture either. And both of them are tied together. So they've got too much chicken manure to get rid of. They can't spread it the way they were doing. Now they've increased the amount of chicken production down here in this county and in surrounding areas. So now instead of 800 tons, they're pushing 1,000,000 tons of chicken poop per year in this area. And they don't know what to do with it. Well, I do, and there are other people who are enlightened enough to know about this. My point to this being, if they understood the micro of this, they would understand that they could take this poop and get the methane gas off of it. That the production of the methane gas would give them a free energy source. After the microorganisms work within the poo and all the other garbage that gets in with this chicken mess that they pile up and then spread around all over, and then it dries and it turns into dust and we breathe it into our lungs. It's yuck. So but anyway, but they didn't understand the micro part of things first. If they'd have said, well, we're gonna put in 2 million chickens in Colquitt County, and they're gonna poo, we're gonna add it in the soil, we'll get rid of it. Nah, if they'd have thought about, we're going to have a bunch of chicken poo. What can we do with the chicken poo? Because we're going to have the chickens. But with the chickens is going to come waste, feathers, poo, crap, stuff, dead birds. Oh, man. So if they had thought about that from the get-go, 10 years later down the line, they wouldn't be having this issue of what are we going to do with another 200 tons of poo. The solution would already be there. And the health issues that are cropping up in certain areas around these chicken farms and where they're spreading the chicken poo after it dries, it's not going around very well, let me tell you. And people who thought they knew what they were doing are looking at their own farms and going, there's too much poo for me to get rid of. I can't even add it to my own soil. Other farmers, they've already got enough of that. They don't know what to do with all this poo. So they didn't look at the small details first. They just looked at the big one. And now they have these issues. So in the universe of things, we must look at the microorganisms of things. And in the universe, you and I are the microorganisms on this particular planet at the moment. Bob's not cooperating tonight, buffering badly, Pamela. Sorry about that. The solution to the chicken poo is the information is available. They are just choosing not to do it. However, there are some enlightened 30-ish, 30, 40-year-olds that are like, wait a minute, we need to fix this now. Good for them. Now, to move on with that, though, in the microorganisms, I've done videos about being down on the river and seeing islands of plastic and garbage and things like that. Those microorganisms are affecting the macro. There are fewer frogs, there are fewer alligators, there are fewer fish, there are fewer garfish, there are fewer of a lot of things that rely on microorganisms in the system, in the ecology of things, in order for the entire system to work. So you say, well, okay, I'm bringing this up about the earth because these are tangible things that you can look up in the sky. You can go out and touch a tree. You can go out and play in the water. You can look under a microscope. These are tangible things that you can see, feel, and touch. Now, to the next point. Back again, Pamela, blessings, blessings, blessings. So to the next point of this, what about the timeline shifts? Well, there are a lot of people who are having Mandela type issues where one day they remember seeing a building on the corner and the next day they go by and there's no building there. Something's wrong. In my own life the other day, I was telling Breaking Dawn earlier this evening, we were having a chat. I said, I put some seeds in some small containers to get them to sprout, and I'm going to transfer them to the garden. I went out there tonight, this afternoon, to do my chicken detail and so forth, and to water the seeds. And I looked down, and several of the planters that I put the seeds in, the seeds were out of the soil and split apart, and somebody had eaten the insides. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Yesterday, I just watered them. They were all covered. There's no footprints. There's no indication of anything getting into the seed beds. But something has changed. And I'm like, yesterday, there weren't any tomato plants in this one. And now there are tomato plants that are up this tall. Now, I know seeds can grow up quick, but it was only like 14 hours ago that I checked the plants. And then I go out there this afternoon and I was like, wait a minute. Now, so in my particular instance, I'm wondering, there's all these timeline shifts. There's all this stuff. There's here one day and not here the next day. Am I going flipping crazy? Too many people are having the same kind of issues where one day something's there and the next day it's nothing, or it's not, or it's a different color, or it's the building shaped differently, or just all kinds of weirdness. And so it's like you just got to scratch your head and go, Now, the spirit guides, upper beings, however you want to say it, there's for quite a while now, it seems that we are having timelines merge. And that for whatever reason, the universe is trying to be healed. Mother Earth is being healed and it shows up in the Schumann resonance. Or 2 days ago, we had a really big Schumann whiteout kind of event. Not extremely, but it was a crap load of high energy coming in, that's for sure. Right now, we're sort of in a lull. And the ringing in this ear is kind of low and, anyway. With that said, though, I got off topic. My brain went into ear ringing and lost it, but it has to do with frequency as well. As these timelines are changing, as things are merging, melding, if you believe in the fact that what a lot of spiritual folks are saying is that we're going into the fourth dimension, what would the fourth dimension look like? Let's have a little discussion about this, because I brought up the macro and the micro for a reason in the beginning. Because there are things that exist that we don't see with our eyes until we are trained or until we take our focus to look at them. For example, if you don't watch ants in the ground, in the grass and stuff, you don't know what kind of behavior they have. You don't know that they can carry, 100 times their weight. One teeny little ant's carrying a potato chip kind of thing, and you got to scratch your head and go, Now, to those of us who would go, well, wait a minute, isn't that a different reality? Is that a different dimension? Because that ant's so small, he doesn't know he can't pick up that potato chip. To the same point, to an ant, does an ant live in a three-dimensional world? Well, ants walk upside down on a ceiling. We don't. Ants walk upside down on a tree limb. They can go around a tree limb like this. We don't. They understand their world in a different type of dimensional reality. In their reality, they can walk upside down. Ain't no big deal. To you and me, plump, we're dead. We ain't walking on the ceiling without a lot of help. So in our 3D reality, which seems to be the reality of the ant, but if you look at it from the ant's point of view, the ant goes, look at that giant. He can only walk on 2 legs. I got 6. And I can walk upside down and he falls down. From the ant's point of view, we must be stupid, to his point of view. So in looking at things in different dimensions, in different timelines, everything isn't going to be the same all the time. Because an ant's reality, I can go outside and watch the ants crawl up and down the tree, but I can't do that. Not the way they do. I can't crawl upside down on a limb and walk out to a leaf, pick it, and then come back down the tree and take it to the home nest. Wish I could sometimes, but to the point, in their reality, which coexists in ours, is that a timeline? Is that the ants live on their timeline? And on their timeline, they can walk upside down on a ceiling. Well, let's consider this. Let's consider another idea in this then, the micro, the macro. What other small thing? Well, amoebas. An amoeba is a tiny little one-cell thing. It floats around. And blah, 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 it lives in water. Okay. Well, can an amoeba exist? Well, I don't see it. Well, but I got pond water down here. Well, does that mean an amoeba would exist in that pond water? If I took out a microscope, I could probably find one. Now, unless I look, all I see is water. But it's pond water. Okay. So in my reality, in my 3D, what I can perceive, it just looks like pond water. But when I look closer, I see all these other critters and things that ain't just amoebas, but it's whatever lives in the pond water. Okay, I hope I've made my point about that, because what we need to understand is simply because we can't see something doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. What about the cells in our body? Well, I can't see them, but I know they're in there. I know my blood's going up and down the veins. I can't see it, but I can kind of know. I can see the veins in my arm, and I can picture it, and the heart's pumping and doing it, but I can't see it. But what about all those little blood vessels and all the little corpuscles and all the red and whites and all the other stuffs in our bloodstream? Can we see that? Well, unless we look with a microscope. So we know it's there. We understand it's there. We have proven that it's there through our science. Now, where am I headed with this? What about the unseen world? Now, I recently came back from the river, and I went to a place, and I did some ceremony, and I did a video about Monday night, I guess, this 30th of April or the 1st of May. Anyway, but to the point, and what I experienced out on the lake, and my experience with the universe. And then I got back home, and Drake and Dawn and I was sharing the pictures with her, and lo and behold, there are orbs all over the place. And we even caught a picture. I caught a picture of a fairy again. Now, I did a video before about orbs on the Flint River, and I'm still having issues with trying to do the share because I can't share the screen yet to show you these pictures that I took. But with that said, though, there are other people that I've shared the pictures with and said, here you go. But to the point, though, I took pictures of a fairy and some orbs on the Flint River. Now, I'm down on the Oclockney River, which is an easy 50 miles, almost 60-mile difference in places. And I take a picture that is very, very, very similar to the picture one of the pictures that I took, well, on the Flint River with all the orbs there. Now, I know there are people who would say, well, those orbs, they're just, it's just a reflection off the lens and all that. Not when you're using a flash in the middle of the night. And I use different flash settings. I take a picture, one right in front of the other, it's about 30 seconds apart, because the camera has to recharge for the flash to work. So I sit in the same place and I take another picture, and the orbs are there, and then they're not, or the orbs have moved, or they're not, and this and that. And so it's like, okay, so if it's the camera, then why isn't it in every picture? So, and I've been taking pictures of orbs now in certain locations for going on 20 years now. So this is like not a new phenomenon to me. I've just been able to refine it to where I know what camera settings, I know what exposure, I know what shutter stop, I know what flashed thing to use. Anyway, so with that said, hello, Delaney, blessings. I got a vid of Robin Williams manifesting as all white ghost. Interesting. I've had a connection with Robin Williams over the years, but anyway, not to put myself into it, but he's a very interesting spirit, to say the least. Anywho, moving on with this. So, but to your point though, Delaney, is that there are things that we cannot see, most of us, with our two eyes at this point, that absolutely do exist. I've told my true stories about the ghost that saved us from the house that burned down, and the fact that he woke me up and got us out of the house before we were burned alive. and the various other things that I have seen and have been allowed to take pictures of. And I've done videos, the orbs in Ohio, the orbs on the Flint River, and I'm going to hopefully be able to share the pictures of the orbs that I caught down on the Ochlockonee River. Now, my point of that is that there are many people who don't believe those such things can exist or could exist or would exist. So if you're trying to go into this dimensional shift, if you're thinking that I'm going to go into the fourth dimension here, oh, I'm going to go along and all this and all that, everything's all happy and nice and everything, but I don't believe in fairies, I don't believe in orbs, and I don't believe in this, but I'm going to make the transition, then you don't really believe that in the fourth, because when you start seeing things in the fourth dimension, you're going to go, oh, holy crap. You're going to start seeing the orbs. These things will not manifest themselves. The veil will be taken away from us to where we will be visually able to see them. Now, with these two eyes and our third eye, so we're going to be able to see these things in our own reality. Now, right now, can I prove it? No. But there are a lot of people who are having issues with the timeline things and time just feeling wonky. I was telling Breaking Dawn earlier, I went out the house the other night to do my evening check on the constellations and checking on the earth wobble kind of thing. And I went out in the yard and I was like, I knew I was in my yard. I walked out my door. I walked out into the yard. I've done 1,000 times before, but it didn't feel like I was in my yard. I knew I was. There's my truck. And it was like, but at the same time, I didn't feel like I was in my yard. And I just stood there with my arms folded going, now, what the hell is this all about? I mean, it felt familiar, but it at the same point, it felt like I didn't belong in that yard. I'm still puzzled about that little thingy. But the thing is there's been these little blips in time. Now, at least in my reality, of course, I don't do the 9 to 5 as other people do, and my life is different than other people's. I get that. But in my life, I simply an observer. And so, but when I understand underlying things like there are microorganisms in the world, in the soil, on the floor right here, 3-second rule. How long does it take for a germ to hitch a ride on a potato chip? I don't know. Has there ever been a study done? Does this 3-second rule apply, or does 5 minutes, if you wipe it off, does it count? But to the point, though, there are those things that we understand. Yeah, they're small, and yeah, they're there, but there is an awareness of it. Okay, whether we just stop and want to look at our blood vessels or whatever, that's not the point. We understand that the micro exists. Okay, so even those people who are like not scientific or anything like that, they understand enough about the body and the blood that we've got cells and trees. So there's a basic science that, I don't want you to take offense to this, an imbecile could understand. Maybe not a monkey, but a very low level human being. And there is a level of understanding called imbecile, and that's pretty stupid. But to the point, 4 and 5 and 6-year-olds, sometimes 3-year-olds can understand these basic micro things in the universe. So going back to the orbs, fairies, the other realms, other dimensions, are they in other dimensions, or are they simply coexisting on our timeline in our dimension? Now, I say that because I spoke earlier about the ant. Now, okay, the ant's moving along and everything, and I'm standing by the tree watching him crawl up and then go underneath this limb. We're coexisting in one dimension, in mine. I'm coexisting in the ant's dimension, which to him is in 4D in a way, because he can go upside down and look at the whole universe in that respect, differently than we can. I don't know what it's like to walk upside down. I used to do handstands and things back in the days with gymnastics, but my point of walking on the ceiling, no. So in that reality, I can try to imagine it, but I can't actually do it yet. Working on it. But to the point, though, to the ant, it's common. We share the same timeline, or do we? Or is the ant's timeline and my timeline simply coexisting? Because I can leave the tree and go walk on my two legs, and the ant, he goes around the tree limb, gets his thing. He's still in his own reality. But which one is right? Is the ant in a 3D reality? He exists in my reality because I see. But does the ant know that I'm in his 4D reality? No, he's thinking I'm an idiot because I can't walk upside down. I know this sounds kind of weird, right? Pay attention. In that, guess what? And as we move into this new transitional fourth dimension, we need to be able to understand that maybe some of these things could be possible. Folks talk about manifesting things. I want to be able to walk on the ceiling. How about that manifestation? Some people want to manifest a new house. I'm okay with mine. I could use a little fixing up. I'm working on it, but to the point, I don't need some big junky thing to manifest. No, but I would love to manifest being able to walk upside down on a limb to be able to play like an ant does, just for the hell of it. You know what I'm saying? So we all got a different perspective as to what our timelines should be. So my reality, my understanding of the timeline includes ants walking upside down. Other people, now doesn't make them better or worse or right or wrong. It's not about that, but it is about awareness. They don't have to walk around every day going, ants walk upside down and I don't. No, but in their reality, have they ever stopped to even ponder it for just 5 minutes? Just 5 minutes. Gee, ants walk upside down and I can't. Isn't that interesting? Or do they just don't give a crap? When people just push things away, well, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter in your day-to-day life, but can you stop long enough to understand that it's possible? Well, you see the ant upside down. I've taken pictures of orbs and showed it to people, and there are people who go, that's you. Now you created that in Photoshop. There's a timestamp. You can look at the photo. The metadata has not changed. I didn't tinker with the photo, but there are people who are their belief system is such that those orbs cannot exist. They must be an aberration of the lens and light. They cannot exist. Well, then you're not going to do very well in the fourth dimension, are you? Because you've automatically said it doesn't exist. It can't exist. These things cannot exist. In my parallel, in my timeline, in my understanding, in my whatever, that can't happen. Okay. They're going to have some issues. And I don't mean that to be snide or nasty, but if they've already shut off the belief that it could be possible, not that it does, but it's possible. But me and many, and I'm sure you know some people that just go, nah, there's no way that any of that could exist. Their mind is made up, and regardless of what we say, do, show them, their instinct is that, nah, that's not possible. Well, wait a minute, but I just showed you this picture I'm just looking at for the first time, but you tell me, nope, that's an aberration of the camera. I took 4 pictures in the same area. Each of the 4 pictures has orbs in different configurations. So if it was a camera aberration, wouldn't it duplicate itself for every 4 times I took the picture in the same direction within 3 minutes of each other? But no, I can't believe it. It must be the camera. So and now I got to say, 20 years ago, I was like, nah, that can't be, can it? And then I listened to my spirit And because I had been saved literally by a ghost who woke me up and we got out of a burning house, I understand that there are other realms. So I can accept that maybe orbs actually exist. So for the last 40 years, I've understood maybe. Could I put my finger on it? No, but the ghost appeared before me, shook me, woke me up, said, Dave, get out of the house. It's burning. And I did. And he disappeared that quick. But he manifested himself and woke me by shaking my foot. So it's like, do these things exist? You damn right they do. In my world, in my timeline. But now, what about your timeline? And not being ugly, I'm being respectful. But in my timeline, me and my family my family at the time were saved by this spirit ghost who manifested and saved us from a burning house. In our timeline, that's true because we were saved by this entity. In everybody else's timeline, it's just a story. Believe it or not. Well, but we're saved, and I can, put you in touch with a couple of people. I have somewhere upstairs, I've got where the house burned down, a clip in the newspaper. So I've got proof that the house burned down. But can I prove that the spirit saved us? No, we're alive. That's the proof. Now, to other people, it's like, well, maybe you were dreaming. Well, maybe something else. They make up a story because they, in their realm, in their timeline, in their reality, whatever it is, they can't accept it. Well, that can't happen. But got to be something else. Must have been your imagination. You must have been dreaming. Every other explanation except what I told them as truth. Okay. So you believe in my timeline? Should I believe in yours? In your timeline, these things don't exist. Now, here's an interesting thing that I brought up with Breaking Dawn earlier, and it's like, I asked the question of my spirit guides, and I was like, this merging timeline kind of thing is a little kind of, how do I explain this? How can I explain that my timeline may not be the same as your timeline, even though they coexist at the same time? My timeline versus the ant's timeline, not the same, but we still exist in the same point. And this is the answer that they gave me. And ponder this one for a second. It's an interesting explanation, and it makes damn good sense. I mean, just say it. And I'm thankful that they gave me the information. Here we go. Take your car radio, AM or FM, doesn't matter. In fact, the fact that you have two separate channels, an AM and an FM, just makes what I'm about to say even more exponentially. In other words, it's even bigger. Okay. Now, for every little click on the dial, if there's a radio station with that frequency, something's going to come out. Okay, NPR. All right, today's news is, flip to the next one. Okay, next channel. All right. But guess what? Every one of those channels are existing at the same time. What? All of the frequencies on all of the radio stations are operating at the same time. But in order to listen to NPR, you turn it to the bottom end of the dial, 88.4, and there's the NPR station. You want to listen to classic rock around here, it's Gulf 104 out of Tallahassee. And so it's like, okie dokie. But both radio stations are independent. They're both broadcasting, which is similar, different frequencies, but they both have transmitters, they both have towers, they all have similar equipment. So they're much more alike than they are different, except for their format and the frequency. However, if a person out here in whatever, we're flipping through the dials, they all exist at the same time. So each one of these radio stations is in itself its own timeline. by its own definition because of the programming. So Gulf 104's timeline is classic rock. They have interviews with this, they have blah, blah, blah. And their commercials reflect that market share. NPR, public radio, blah, blah, blah. Different market share, different thingy, different format. There's no music. It's all talking. There's very little commercials and etc. They both, if I have two radios, I can listen to both stations at the same time. So they both exist, but one's focused on this thing format and this one's focused on that. So if you say, well, Hawkeye, how can different timelines be working at the same time? How can millions, thousands of radio stations all operate at the same time, but all have different frequencies? And they all have different formats. Some are similar, blah, blah, blah. You know, you get the drift. But the idea is that for every transmitter, it's only going to broadcast so far. So only the people in that area, which could be included in that timeline, which for me would be South Georgia, we get the swine report. Where if you go up north, you're not going to get the swine report because they don't do the swine. Yeah, you know. So when I asked this question about shifting timelines, it was like, for example, and this is the example they gave me, and I'm going to use Gulf 104 as just because. So Gulf 104, I'm sort of at the edge of the northern reaches of that signal from Tallahassee, okay, from where I am in South Georgia. And sometimes if there's enough, atmospheric interruptions kind of thingy, I can't pick up the radio station at all. It's fuzzy, yucky, blah. All right. So with that said, if I go any further north and or northeast, away from the radio station, good evening, Michelle. Blessings to you. So the further I get away from Gulf 104, that signal's going to fade. What's going to happen is another radio station somewhere else that's got a frequency that's close to 104.3 or whatever it is, I'm going to start hearing it. So I can hear Gulf 104 and this other station coming out of Warner Robins at the same time over the same frequency, and maybe even pick up another radio station that's similar. In radio, they literally you can aim the direction signal coming out of an antenna. All right. So, and some of them aren't necessarily round. Some of them are more parabolic. And there'll be one radio station here and one radio station here, and they literally fit the signal within the space of other radio stations. It's really interesting and kind of bizarre in a way. But so the FCC is supposed to regulate this. So when one signal fails is when the other signals start to pick up. So there's fringe area for every single radio station because that's the way it's built in. So, but when you get to the fringe areas, you can hear two stations almost simultaneously, sometimes simultaneously, and maybe a third or fourth. They're all crackling in and out and this and that and the other thing. They both exist on that same frequency, but when you get out of a range, now you're in another time. Now you're in somebody else's timeline. I just left Gulf 104, Tallahassee, to go to Warner Robins, which is more peaches and agriculture and Vidalia onions. And so the backdrop, the thing is different. Same frequency, different music format, same frequency. All I did was move from one area to the next. Now, what the hell does this have to do with dimensions and fourth dimension? Because what we're experiencing right now is we're at the fringes. Some of us are and others aren't because of our own personal frequency. It's not about whether or not I'm better than you or you're better than me. Nothing to do with it. It has to do with our own personal frequency and how we modulate with the rest of the universe. If our modulation is off, if our frequency is off, modulation is it's sort of like a pulsing, if you will. So it's modulating is you want to it generating. Yeah, look up modulation. But anyway, I understand what it means, and I didn't mean to throw in a curve word there. But for each of us, we modulate like radio stations do. I'm using that terminology as what's going on here. But the modulation of each of us is like a transmitter for each one of these radio stations. So if our frequency, if our own personal modulation is at 88.9 on the low end of the FM band, that's where our frequency is. Okay. That's where our timeline exists. But now, and I don't know, but I'm just saying maybe mine is up towards 92 or 95. It's not that I'm better. It's not that, but my modulation is different. My core energy is different. I am working on my spiritual thing differently than other people. Doesn't make me better or worse. It's that it's different. My timeline is coexisting with yours and theirs and all of the ethereal beings in between. All of those things that a lot of people just say poo-paw on. No, orbs don't exist. Fairies can exist. That's all just hogwash, and you're making all this stuff up. But when the pictures arrive, and when I take my own pictures and I share them, and I go, you can what you want, but there they are. You have to understand that if you say no to these things, that they could exist, not that they do, but that they could exist. It's the idea of allowing your mind to say maybe. If you say no, then maybe's out of the question. So how can you believe in a fourth dimension? How can you believe in other realities if your modulation is going to stay on the low dial of whatever radio station? If your modulation is going to stay, well, I'm just an NPR station. I don't go for classic rock. I'm just going to stay down here with the old folks, and we're going to talk radio and talk about stuff, and that's okay. And I used to be one of those people, so I'm talking about myself here. And then I realized, holy crap, what a mess they put me in. But anyway, and drug me down in a lot of ways too, instead of enlightening me. But to the point about this, though, so where are you modulating? Now, in my reality, anything is possible, because unless I have absolute proof that it doesn't exist, I got to say, because every time I say, well, I don't know if that's possible, creator kicks in, my spirit guides kick in, and they go, what? Hey, come on, Hawkeye, let's go out on the lake. Let's take you into the universe. We're going to pull you out of your kayak and take you to the, holy shit, then drop me back on the water in the middle of the night without drowning. Oh my God. Anyway, but in my world, that happened. In my world, if I could truly share what that experience was, you all would be so like, holy mackerel. But to a lot of people, what I described to you is impossible. Well, that was a nice dream. Well, Hawkeye, okay. Well, you sure had a neat experience. Well, but I'm trying to explain that this thing, and I had a being on either side, and they lifted me right up off of the, and it wasn't an abduction. I told them, show me what you got. So I kind of agreed to it, but I wasn't expecting what I got. But at the same point, in my reality, after they put me back in my kayak, I was like, I couldn't believe that could happen. But in my own reality of self, I was like, I have to believe that those kinds of things could happen. Whether or not they would happen to me or that I would ever experience it, different story. But in my realm of reality as a shaman in training, I must understand that these types of spiritual enlightenment, spirit guides take me to the universe, are possible. Even though remotely, they are possible. And the other night or the other morning on the lake, they showed me, see, it's possible. Now, I needed help. I didn't do that by myself, but oh, what an experience. But the thing is so for everything that I think, wow, I've almost reached the edge of my, I believe in even more things now, but or that I believe that more things are possible. Okay. So this idea of merging timelines are like radio stations. They all exist at the same time. So all of our timelines, Pamela's in California, I'm in Georgia. We're sharing this same time right now. Thank you, Bob, and to the other AI. Um, Thank you, YouTube and Hangouts, for allowing me to do this. Thank you very much. I mean that sincerely. But in that, we're sharing this same time in absolutely, totally different realities. Pamela's in her timeline. I'm down here in South Georgia. They coexist at the same time. Timeline, time experience. Okay, next other thing. Our timelines, and Breaking Dawn brought this up, and it's a good question. Are timelines dimensions? And my answer to that was no. And then I kind of had to stop and go, well, wait a minute, I need some clarification on that. And dimensional shift is totally different than a timeline. And here's a simple explanation. A dimension exists in its own self. A timeline can exist in a dimension, but a dimension can't exist in a timeline. Okay, there's an old phrase, all horses are animals, but all animals are not horses. What? Yes, exactly. So a dimension is in itself its own thing. And there are timelines in the dimension. But on a timeline, other dimensions can't exist because that would negate the timeline. It would become a dimension. Okay? It's, horses are animals, but not animals are horses. So I was like, well, now that's interesting. So the merging timelines can keep merging, fluctuating, and etc. because of all of our individual modulations. Even if you lived here with me, our timelines wouldn't be the same because our thought patterns are different. We're different human beings. Even though we could share the exact same experience, my experience is going to be different from yours because we're different people. It's as simple as that. So we can be riding down the car, on a road trip. Your experience may be similar to mine, but it's not the same. So are we going down the highway on the same timeline? Is it your timeline or mine? Are we sharing timelines? So in what they're explaining to me now, trying to explain to you, we're each a radio station. What's merging in our timelines is that we're understanding the other's modulation. We are understanding these other things. Now, there are those folks who are going to stay on the NPR station, low end of the radio. They're still got it. They still have a station. They still have timelines, but theirs exists totally different than mine, yours, ours, in our collective here, in our collective thinking, in our league of like-minded beings, because we understand that other things are possible. But for those people who reject the unseen, I have to have more proof. Well, here's a picture. No, you tampered with that. I can't believe that picture. I just took the fucking pic. Sorry. I just took the flipping. Sorry, I didn't mean to. But I just took the flipping picture and you don't believe me? There's a timestamp. Look at the metadata. I still don't believe it. That's a camera aberration. Okay. But here's a picture of a fairy. Can't be. Fairies don't exist. I could maybe accept orbs, but I can't accept a fairy. What? You can accept that there are little tiny orbs that float around in the universe, but you can't admit that it's at least possible that fairies exist in this other dimension? Oh, no, no, no. I'm positive. They don't exist. Can't exist. Different radio station, different frequency, different understanding, different timelines. Although, guess what? Think about it. All these radio stations playing at the same time, where they all exist, but until you get to the fringe areas, you don't hear Gulf 104 and Warner Robins at the same time, at the same frequency, only in small patches. So we're going through the universe right now, and the explanation to me is coming in because of because radio frequency, because radio frequencies have a similarity to the frequencies of the universe in that there are waves and patterns and modulations and so forth. So they are alike in that, but dissimilar. Like a television wave is different from a radio wave, but they're still similar. It's the frequency and the modulation that makes them different. So, but there's still waves coming across the air that we can pick up with an antenna and an electronic device. So they're very similar in that respect. Okay. Now, where does that bring us into deja vu? Thought I forgot about it, didn't you? All right. What if? And I gave up keeping track of deja vu events. I mean, it's like at my age, it's like, holy crap, there's just been so much has happened. Now, the question was posed to me, what about deja vu? Is it because we've lived it before? And therefore, when we get to that point, we go, oh my God, I've been here before. Okay, what if on my timeline, I zipped forward in my forward looking, in my dreams, in my whatever, or just that they're going to show me something in the future. And so my brain skips forward on my timeline, because a lot of times, if I have a deja vu moment, nobody in the group has it. It's only my experience. So did I go forward in time, which would have meant everybody else should have went with me, or did my thought process go forward in time, and myself, I caught up with it? In other words, the thought went forward, kind of stayed there. It's left a little dot in my brain somewhere that says, whoop, we went forward, saw this. And now when we get there, we go, holy crap, I've been here before. But did we physically go? Did we mentally go? Did we astral project into the future? Or was it simply our timeline that somebody else, was favored to see in the future? And that as our 3D realm, or as we progressed, we caught up with that thought. Told you it was going to get interesting. Told you it was going to get interesting. Now, I don't know. I'm having the feeling, though, that with all the deja vu moments and with this new information that they've given me here in these last couple of days to have this conversation, I'm thinking back and going, you know what? I think however you want to put it, I think I dreamed forward. And that my thought, there was on my timeline, there was this little like marker. And when I got there, it triggered my brain to go, deja vu, I've been here before. Well, maybe in thought only, maybe not it as the whole process, but it's always been just my timeline. Nobody else gets the deja vu moment when I have it. It's my moment, not theirs. Now, there has been a couple of times, very rare, that me and another person be, wow, do you feel like you've been here before? Yeah, well, me too. But my experience of how it felt, because we just spoke about it, was different. So where I felt, and I'm just going to give a different example. Like I felt like I was a Confederate soldier, and the other person felt like they were, I don't know, Daniel Boone or something. But to the point that, meaning that we were off in the wilderness somewhere and we were at a place that felt familiar to us. But with that said, though, did we share it? But in his timeline, he had a deja vu moment that was totally different than my deja vu moment, but we both experienced it at the same time. Were we there? Now, see, now that was a past event. So a past event is past event. We reached a certain point that in our brain that we brought, our essence that we carry through with our reincarnations, we get to a spot and go, oh my God, here's a marker. For some reason, there's a marker in here. Now, my reality now in this timeline may not understand it, but I reached a marker. Now, there are times in my lifetime, this time, when I go forward and there are people around me, it's not something that happened in the past. I'm living now. It happened in this current time, but I've caught up with my thought versus a thought I had in another reincarnation. And I reached a point that triggered an old thought as a deja vu. So I'm considering deja vu past event, or a deja vu in that, oh my God, I've been here before and it feels like it's a current event. In that, I would say our thoughts went forward on our own timeline and that we have caught up with it. It's just, they're telling me, yep, that's what happens to us. In our own timelines, we see forward, we remote view, however you want to look at it. And for those of us who have practiced remote viewing and things, I gave it up because I don't want to see what's coming. They've already showed me too much shit. I do not want any more information in that. I want information that'll help other people to achieve higher levels of reality in thinking. And so in this, the micro, the macro, all of this exists at the same. Do amoebas exist in the pond water out back? Yes. Are they in my house and do they exist in my timeline right now? No. But in this 3D reality, they exist with me because I can walk down there in the woods and find pond water and find pond water. That easy for me to say. But now with that said, so how's this going to be with the fourth dimension? We're going to have to spend some time convincing some people that it exists. Not whether or not we could get there. They don't even believe that it exists. So how can you believe that you're going to transcend or get there when they don't even have a clue what it could be or what it might mean or what, well, I don't know. Oh, yeah, we're going to go to the fifth dimension. I've stated this many times before, and let me reiterate after 58 minutes and 29 seconds. I should have said this earlier, but if you've hung out this long, this is important. There are a lot of people who've been saying, oh, we're going to go right into the fifth and then, skip right into the sixth dimension. Not possible. We want the fourth dimension. And anybody that tries to tell you differently, just say, I'm sorry, I want to go to the fourth, because that's a training session. We got to go to the fourth. We're not going to skip a grade. And for those folks who started this, I don't know, about a year or so ago, that we're going to skip right through the fourth and hit the fifth and then like hit a trampoline and go into the sixth. Hey, Michelle, cheers to Bob. Yeah, Bob's, and I got to say that I've been getting messages. Bob's being beat up by the other AI, by the way. He tries to help us out. They're creaming him. Just a thought. So I love you, Bob. Thank you in there, and keep doing the good job you're doing. But in this reality of other things, though, so it's like if you don't believe that a fourth dimension could exist, if you can't believe that, orbs, or that other realities, or that spirit beings, or that essences, if you just in your reality, you say, nope, can't happen, you're going to be in the kiddie pool for a while. And I mean that with the sincerest respect, because if you don't take that leap of faith, then you're not going to be able to even grasp it. So for those of us who understand this, we need to be patient. They're telling me right now, we have to have continued patience with these folks, because we may have had the experiences to see these other realms, or to at least understand these other realms. And for people who just poo-poo it right out of the barn, we got to pray for these folks, because they're the ones that are going to have the heart attacks. They're the folks that are going to pee their pants and crap their britches, because they're not going to, oh my God, you mean that shit really exists? Well, yeah, we tried to warn you. We're not trying to be into the supernatural. Listen, just to understand that these things can or could exist. It's a possibility. Don't care how remote, there is a possibility. So this transition into the fourth is occurring right now. Why? Well, we've been getting whiteouts on the Schumann resonance. We're going to get some more. Breaking Dawn and I have been watching the charts, and the chart has changed. How the frequencies are coming in. And I was told a couple of weeks ago that the energies are being modulated. And if you guys have stuck with me this long, bear with me. I've got, they showed me this picture of 3 very large ET craft. Just leave it at that. And that they form a triangle in space. There's one that is in front of the Earth, if you will, between us and the sun and the universe. And then there's one on either side. Now, they always form a triangle because there's 3 of them. But the configuration changes, because what they're trying to do is, as these energies are coming out of the sun, out of the cosmos, from the center of the galaxy, we would have been wiped off the map had they not modulated and dispersed this energy the way they have. And it is showing up on the Schumann resonance. I'm going to try to do some screen share, but Breaking Dawn and I we take a screenshot every day. And 2 weeks ago, didn't look anything like it does now. There are like little beads of stringers coming down, and they are almost identically across, for the last 3 days that they're there, and the spacing is almost perfect. So, but the impression that they gave me is that, so here's Mother Earth. Here's one sphere, here's another. Depending on where the energy comes from, the one stays in front, is always at the apex. The other 2 might rotate this way, this one might come up here, and it might almost look like a straight line. But what they're doing is they're acting like capacitors. In other words, the charge is coming at us, and it absorbs a lot of the energy, so they can send it to us in short bursts without just getting blasted off of this planet. Now, whether you believe that or not, I just thought I would toss that in there, because now there's some really strange things showing up on the Schumann resonance, and they're saying this is what they're doing. They're modulating the energy so that we can get this in steady doses rather than getting creamed. Just putting that out there. I can't prove it for shit, but it feels good in here as far as, does it make sense? Yeah, it does. The fourth dimensional thing. There's going to be times when we're going to hear 4 or 5 or 6 different radio stations if you continue along with my thought pattern of where different radio, one loses and the other begins so as we move through the universe, we're literally hitting different timelines, if you will. We're hitting different frequencies which could put some of us on a different timeline schedule than somebody else. I believe in certain things that other people refuse. So if these energies hit me, it I'm just saying that my belief system is reinforced, where these other people just go, their negative disbelief is reinforced. Nope, they can't believe it even more. Versus me, I'm getting these energies coming in and I'm going, wow, I feel these energies. They're doing something to me. I'm not sure what, but they're doing something to me and it feels kind of positive in my timeline. Somebody else's might be going, I don't know what this shit is. It's horrible. It's nasty. I don't believe it. It can't happen. You just sealed your fate by lowering your own modulation. And it isn't about being better than the next guy. But if your belief system keeps your own modulation at such a frequency, you can't receive what's coming in the universe. I can't help you because you have to accept and receive on your own. That's my prayer always, accept and receive. But if you reject it and be deceived, well, then the opposite's going to happen. They're telling me, yep, that'll lower your frequency in a heartbeat. And we know people who disbelieve so much that they're hard to be around, Even if you don't talk about stuff that they don't like, it's still hard to be around these people. There's just something about that, their own modulation, which is what I've been talking about, our own core value, our own core frequency. It is our own core modulation. It's what we put out to the universe. And for every one of us that is looking forward to upgrading I want to upgrade my frequency because I've lived 67 years at this one. Why not have a change? Why not accept something better or at least different? I don't know if it's better or not, but to say, nah, to hell with it. Nah, I don't want it. Nah, I'm happy in my crappy little whatever, and I'm just going to live out the rest. Well, that's your choice. That's your choice. If I die tomorrow, I want to know that my frequency is good enough to be able to go. Regardless of what happens to me on this planet, I have to look forward to what's going to come next. And one of the things that Christians mostly, they always talk about Jesus in the Bible and stuff, but Jesus was always, what was he preaching? What's going to happen when you leave this planet? What's the beyond when you go to sit with my Father? When you go to heaven? So it's all about your life trying to modulate your energy, not for a better here, but for a better there, for the better transition. Is anybody paying attention? How many Christians do you know that aren't, preaching this bullshit, Oh, Christ, this, you got to be baptized and washed in the blood. Yeah, but you ain't talking about, let's get prepared for the other side now, regardless of how long I'm going to be on this planet in this 3D reality, doesn't matter. What matters is I change my frequency because I wish to, because I know and understand in the galaxy, it is all about frequency. It is all about our modulation. It is all about love. Without love, there is no hope. And there are many people who have no hope and are loveless, lackluster. And it's a shame. We know people like that. And you go, but can't you just smile? Wow, grumpy, assy, bitch. Can you just take a chill pill? Here, smoke this bowl with me for God's sakes, will you? And calm your ass down. Never mind. Sorry. We know people like that. And even when they get stoned or take a happy pill or something, their energy is still so negative. You still don't want to be around them, And anyway, but to the point about this is so what the spirits are giving me a little 10 cent about to wrap this up after an hour and almost 10 minutes. Thank you all very much, Pamela and Michelle. my glasses are somewhere. If I read the chat, I'll get off the subject. And I want to kind of wrap up what I'm discussing here. So understand that, number one, that many things, not possibly all things are possible, but if you understand the manifestation of things, again, it's a belief. There are so many people who go, this manifestation is a bunch of crap. Okay, you're in another category. Well, I don't believe that spirits exist. You're in another category. I don't believe that ghosts can. You're in another category. I don't believe the orbs. Okay, you're in another category. It doesn't mean that you're right or, well, in my opinion, they're wrong, because I have pictures, I have proof, and they still don't want to believe it. Okie dokie. It's okay. I'm not mad at you, but they'll get their dander up. Well, you must have tampered with that picture. Sorry. Look at the metadata. Well, Photoshop, and there's ways of, what it is you just refuse to believe that these things are possible. That's all. And my explanation and wasting my time to try to convince you that the photo is real, when there's the metadata, you can tell it hasn't been altered, but then you still want to make up excuses that it's not real. There's no hope for these people. And I'm sorry, but I will have conversations with them. I will still be nice to them. But if you think I'm going to waste my breath to try to convince them, nah, it's not worth it. I'm going to show it, say, here it is. Well, blah, 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 okie dokie. Your choice to accept or receive. I'm given information. The fairy allowed me to take the picture of her, or him, I'm not quite sure. Kind of feels feminine, but not quite sure. Of all the things and all the pictures that I took over several hours in the middle of the night on this little special mound of clay that I call it clay mound. And it is mostly clay, but anyway. But to the point, though, that I felt that there were entities around that area. And I went back especially to take pictures of these beings, to take ceremony. I took my drum. I talked about this. But for every time that I go, I always take my drum and I always go with a peace offering to the spirits there. Because if I've said in the past, if they don't want you to take their picture, they will kill the batteries in your camera, bam, like that. When you are respectful and honorable, they'll swim around you, and a fairy appeared on one of these pictures the other morning. Unbelievable, the same as the one that's 60 miles from here. What? So it's like a double whammy. It was still too cold for big bugs to be flying around, and I would have seen it with my headlamp. Just say it. There were no bugs that big. And it only appeared in one frame of all the pictures that I took on Clay Mound. So in my reality, in my timeline, these things damn sure exist, without a doubt. Could feel them around me. I could feel the energy of them, and they allowed me to take their picture. I can't wait to share with you guys. I hope I can get them up and show you some of these pictures. In one photo, in only half of the picture, I counted over 100 orbs that you could just see without zooming in or anything. I was just like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I only got halfway up the picture, and there was at least that much, if not more, of the orbs on the top half of the picture. I mean, at least 200, and that's not an exaggeration. Astounded me to no end. I mean, oh my God, that the spirits will allow me to take their picture, that they honor me enough to show up, that they allow me to say, look, I want to share this with my friends. I want to share this with the world, that you beings do exist. We coexist all the time. My timeline, your timeline. If somebody else had been with me on the clay mound, I would have still taken the pictures, and those beings would have still been there. So in that timeline of on that place, anyone could have been with me. I say they might not have liked somebody, but anyway, but to the point that if someone had been with me, the picture still would have been taken. The orbs would have still been there in both of our timelines in this 3D reality. But we coexist at the same timeline and this at the same time. Now, there are those who would say, are those beings in the fourth dimension? They float between the third and fourth because we're able to take pictures of them. I am of the belief that if they were fully fourth dimensional, we would not be able to take their picture. So they are transitional beings moving. They're already in the fourth dimension and on the edge. We're on that fringe area of the radio stations. So more orbs are appearing. There are more fairies appearing in my photographs and in the experiences and so forth that I'm seeing. So there are things happening in nature on my timeline, their timeline, somebody's timeline, that these other beings exist, and they're making themselves more prominent. We have to believe they exist, though. And should we? Here's a like a parting question. Should we waste our time on people who just refuse to believe any of it? That it's at least remotely possible? I don't mean, well, I believe your picture. Okay, well, let's just back up a little bit. Let's just say you don't believe that that picture is a fairy. Okay, fine. It's a bug. But could you believe that the existence of a fairy is possible? No. Oh, well, that's your category. Here, as Jeff Foxworthy used to say, here's your sign, So here's your sign. Go standing over there in that line. Now, again, I want to reiterate, it's not about me or you being better than the next person. It's all about our frequency. They're FM 88.9. I'm Gulf 104. That's all. We've all got our own radio stations. We all sing our own tunes. We all have our own timelines in our core values and in our soul contract. Let's toss that in there. So, but in our soul contract, we have the right to choose. We have free will at any point on this timeline. I choose to wait a minute. I could have stayed home the other night and not gone out onto the lake, and I would have missed it. Oh boy, would I have missed it. And instead, I went through the trouble. Now I was sore for 2 days and could barely walk. That's beside the point. But to the other side is that the spiritual uplift and the experience that I had, I told a friend of mine the other day, I used to spend good money on drugs to even get close to what I experienced without any drugs, So it's like these things do exist. Can I believe that they happened? Well, after the other day, I even more believe that it's possible. It's even more believable, but to other people who say, well, there's Hawkeye again talking about this crazy shit. I don't believe in fairies. They can't exist. This astral project, can't believe in that. All this, that, Dejavu, none of that. So those folks, by default, by their disbelief in anything possible, have already stuck themselves into a category they're going to have to work out themselves. We need to be kind, patient, compassionate to these people. But should we waste our time on them? These folks are saying no, because it's going to drag down our own energy. Let's present them with the facts. Let's be kind, loving, and compassionate. But if they refuse to look or at least try to believe, then we just need to say thank you very much and move on. Don't get upset. Because as soon as we go, well, if you're not going to believe me after I showed you this picture, I realized that the other night. I was like, I was literally dragging my own energy level down to try to convince this person that this was a true photo, that I hadn't doctored it. Why? If you don't believe me, fine. But yeah, okay, fine. And that's not to say, well, you're a worthless piece of shit. You don't believe it? It's okay. You're over there in that category. I'm still going to be respectful to you, although you treat me like shit because you're taking pictures and you say that fairies belong. So they're against me, where I'm like, okay, I can accept their point of view. They can't accept mine. That's why we should not get involved in their nonsense, if you will, because it drags our own modulation down. If I'm on Gulf 104, why do I want to go to 88.9? Why do I want to go back down the scale to try to reach somebody else? If they want to listen to NPR, fine. I want to listen to classic rock. All right. Hey there, John. Blessings to you. So, but with that said, though, we all have the choice to believe it or not. We all have the choice to listen to country music or classical or NPR or whatever. So, as myriad as there are of radio stations, and with the internet, I listen to London, I listen to other parts of the globe through the internet, digital radio. But now I can even listen to even other countries and stuff where I couldn't before. I was just limited to my local area of antenna. What can I pick up? So with that said, the fourth dimension is very similar. We're going to start being able to pick up, like digital radio on the computer or cell phone. We're going to be able to pick up the quantum, the extra out there. Many of us, when I talk about downloads, I mean, and they're kind of giving me one right now kind of thing. I'm sitting here, and 3 years ago, if you'd have said this had happened, I'd have said, nah, you're full of shit, to myself. Nah, David will never get this. But then I had to reach a point where Spirit told me, see, you don't believe that you can get this. You don't believe, Hawkeye. And it was true. And I've talked about this before, but I believe 99%, but it was that 1%. And Spirit came to me and said, you've got to believe 100.1%. It's got to be more than, and it's only got to be a smidgen, one drop more than 100%, which means you really are 100%. That's, not just a maybe 100, 99.999. No. It's got to be 100.1. But to the point, though, in that when I took that last little leap of faith, even for myself, I went, oh, holy shit. Because I was holding back my own modulation. I was holding back my own frequency because I was refusing to understand that maybe I could actually channel my higher self while I'm talking to you guys at the same time. Never thought it would happen to me. Here I am doing it. Oh, holy crap. And the information seems to be good. I'm trying to give you information that will, because my whole job in my reality in this to share with you is how can I help to explain what a shaman understands in a spiritual level? So how can I use common terminology, radio stations, blah, blah, blah. I mean, Jesus did his best with parables of the mustard seed and stuff like that. But for those of us who are trying to explain what the fourth dimension might be like and what the experience is like, if the first thing is that you don't believe, I can't help you any further, because anything that I say past the point that you would even consider to believe, then nothing else is possible. I'm wasting my breath. And all of us are. Doesn't mean that we should be mean to these people. Remember that. So the fourth dimension, and they're telling me right now, I'm not trying to brag about this, but that we are seeing the fourth dimension now. I'm photographing it. I'm seeing these other beings. I'm experiencing it. Because I understand it's possible. That's, I say the prayer always, accept and receive the knowledge, the blessings, and the healing from the universe. Accept and receive. If you don't accept that they're there, how in the hell you can receive them? If you don't accept it first, that it's possible. Well, I don't know. Well, what about Jesus? I think it, stop with this religion stuff. The universe has energy. The universe has knowledge. The universe has healing. Can you accept that in any way? Well, I don't know if God don't. And then stop. Well, God, if He allows it. Well, wait a minute. Yeah, Jesus. Folks go off on all kinds of different tangents. If you just honestly believe within yourself, I accept and receive these healings. What knowledge? Accept it. I get these things that come in, and sometimes it takes me 2 weeks, and then they'll say, okay, Hawkeye, you need to have a conversation about this. And I know I've repeated myself a little bit over this last hour and almost a half, but most of this information, I've listened to other people. They've not discussed this in any way like I'm discussing it. Now, I'm not trying to say that I'm right, but I have a different point of view, and we can all agree on that. I damn sure have a different point of view. But in my different point of view, in that reality of this different point of view, could this be possible? I leave it up to you. It's for each of us to accept or receive. But in my own self, in my own reality, all I can say is, holy crap, man, there's something working here. The timeline merging, they're trying to explain it to me right now about something in that the radio stations are going to be like, it's sort of going to be like simulcast, but at the same time, it ain't. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work. But they're saying that we won't need a radio to listen. I can hear things now on the quantum, especially if I like, okay, I need information on something. Let me put this out to you also, and I want to put this into words and into this video, and I'm going to do another video on this subject. But this came to me, and it's like, I'll be dog. And the word, or the two words, creates a phrase. Check this out. Dimensional differential. Remember, you heard it here. Dimensional differential. Now, I've heard this word, but not in this reality. And they just gave this to me earlier to try to explain this, in that for those of you who have ever watched a Doctor Who program, older or the newer, he's got his little police box, the little thing, they call it the TARDIS, okay? And that when he goes in this thing, there is a dimensional differential. In other words, you walk into a little tiny box that's actually kind of huge on the inside. The fourth dimension is going to be like that. If there are going to be dimensional differentials. In other words, what looks like a little box of something might actually be a whole dadgum universe in there. Not timelines, but universe or dimensions or whatever. But this dimensional differential, they gave this to me earlier to explain this, and that the Doctor Who scenario is exactly it. So we think that we're going to go into a room, when actually when we go through the doors, we're in an auditorium. It's not a broom closet, it's a freaking auditorium. So in the fourth dimensional reality, that can't happen. That's just out of there. That's not possible. Then it ain't. But so this dimensional differential, so in the fourth dimension, you'll be able to walk into a broom closet that is an auditorium. Think about that. That's what they're saying. They want me to give you examples in this 3D reality to try to go, I see what you're talking about. Whether or not you believe me, that's a separate issue. But my point of being here is to stimulate other little neurons in here to go, wait, there's a different reality out there. This could be possible. What if? I love you all, I do. And it's an absolute ball for me to go through these experiences, to have this knowledge and this information unraveled the way they present it to me and say, okay, Hawkeye, do a video. Now it's your job, meaning me. But with that said, so I do love you all, and thank you so much for hanging out with me. Pamela, Michelle, John, Breaking Dawn, whoever else, Pamela Delaney, if they're still on. Blessings to all of you and to everyone else who comes and listens to this and who this channel. I thank you very much. And I say it doesn't do me any good, in other words, monetarily or whatever, but it does my heart good to know that there are people who want to at least explore another point of view. It's all about yourself. It's all about your free choice. But I ask you, just take into consideration what I presented and let it filter through yourself. Let your higher spirit allow your spirit guide to go. Maybe we can help explain what Hawkeye just dumped in your lap for the last hour and a half. The dimensional shift that we're going through, we're going to hear a lot of radio stations at the same time. There's going to be a lot of frequencies banging into one another. We're going to be having deja vu moments that may not be deja vu at all. It may be our forward thinking, our remote viewing, if you will, of our own timelines by our own higher self. So consider these things. In my heart, man, the confusion issues are like, shit, that makes at least some sense. Wow, have to consider this a little more. Am I right? I'm asking the question, are they right? Because they gave me the information to convey to you. So, blessings and healing are out there. The knowledge is available to each and every one of us. Remember that. Don't forget that. You have the power within you. And as I've said before, I caution people all the time, seek only your higher power. Seek your spirit guide. Don't go out there messing around asking about other folks or channeling other entities. Stay out of that realm by all means. They're saying, oh my God, tell them don't do that. They always do that. But to the point, they're right. Stick with your spirit guide, because that will just make you even more powerful. That will give you more, that will bring a surety of your own self. You will, and it's not narcissistic at all. I mean, the information I got on Monday out there in the middle of the lake was humbling. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe you showed this to me. Why me? I mean, just anyway. Versus, oh, look, you took me out into outer space and I'm looking me out. Nah, I don't feel like that at all. I feel, why did you guys pick me? But thank you. Wow, what a trip. But why'd y'all pick me? I'm just saying, in my timeline. But in my timeline, they said, hey, because I'm doing these videos, they want me to have as much experience as possible in my realm so I can explain it to you. Okay, now I'm really starting to ramble a lot. I swear the live streams are getting what? I'm going to try to read back. Live streams are getting mire and more difficult. Crap. I'll have to give in. You win, Bob. I'll watch the replay live. Oh, okay, Pamela's gone. All right, sorry about that, eh? But there are still some things I can't share, even in secret private groups. Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of things that some folks are just not going to pay attention to. But the same thing, there have been things that I experienced years ago that now that I have shifted my own personal modulation, I look back on those and go, I'm not sure I was correct in that assumption. Like, was that a bad spirit or a good spirit or this? I was told some things years ago that had to do about um, shadow beings. And it was sort of given to me, for example, that all shadow beings are bad. And then I was like scared of all shadow beings. And I was like protecting myself against all shadow beings. And then I realized I got to a certain spot and the shadow beings had a little conversation with me and said, Hawkeye, just because we are shadows doesn't mean we're bad. And I went, what? And they were like, there's an evil being, but it's not a shadow being. It's a dark entity, not a shadow being. We are different than, and I went, you mean there are dark energies and there are shadow beings? Yes. And just because we're shadows doesn't mean we're bad. But so even in things that I believed at the time, with further investigation and awareness of the rest of the universe, they showed me, oh crap, I was anything that was not bright was dark, and therefore it must be bad. Shallow minded on my part. Big lesson. So we have to be careful. What we think we fully understand now, I still have to go, well, I believe it's true for now until I get more information, and I'm open for more information. If I say, well, that's the answer, that's it, closed ceiling, I'd still believe that all shadow beings are evil. And that's just not true, you know. Contrary to what a lot of other people, there are dark entities, yes, and they will pose themselves as shadow beings. But shadow beings are not necessarily evil, at least not all of them. But to the point, there are two categories, you know. Um, like, for example, those folks who have talked about, studied, and have discussed demons. There are lesser demons, bigger demons, white demons, black demons, red demons, purple demons, jinn, dimensional. So, to say, oh, that's a demon. Well, what kind, what flavor, what variety? Just saying. So, are all demons or all beings or all, are all horses animals? Yes. But are all animals horses? Just remember that simple little phrase. So I love you all, and I'm going to shut up. I need some coffee, and I was bound and determined not to smoke this cigarette during this, but I want it now. It's been several hours since I had a cigarette. I want one. Anyway, I love you all. Thank you so much. And so my closing prayer. I continue and I will continue to pray that each and every one of you will accept and receive the knowledge, the healing, blessings, John, to you so much, that each and every one of you will continue to accept the knowledge and the healing and the wisdom from the universe. I continue to pray that each and every one of you, your friends, your family, your relatives, and all of your relations will accept and receive these same healings and blessings and wisdom from the universe. I continue to pray that each and every one of you, your friends, your family, your relatives, and all of your relations will continue to pass along the blessings of the universe and continue to accept and receive the compassion, the love, and the honor and the respect that each one of us deserves towards each other. Peace be unto you, my brother and sister. Peace be unto you of all other beings, even the nasty ones. Peace be unto you. I wish no war with anyone. So thank you, Michelle. Love, love, love to all of you. Cosmic hugs from down here in South Georgia. Have a great weekend, folks. I got another subject coming up that'll be, we'll see how soon. And it'll be about the Zen of things. an interesting discussion. Thank you, Michelle, John. Pamela's already gone. Blessings to anyone else that I don't see in the chat. I love you much. Take care, be kind, be sweet, be compassionate, and above all, remember, without love, there is no hope. And I have more hope and even more love. Pass it on. TTFN